Hey guys, welcome back. As you can imagine, the first 3 minutes of this video could have been spread out into like 3 episodes, but who wants to see all that? We're at the point now where the whole body can be removed from the frame. Everything's disconnected that's supposed to be disconnected, which means I probably forgot something. I would have loved to have gone through and shown you every little bit, every little detail. I mean, this seat's pretty easy. The hardware's underneath. It's gonna be rusted out, and the dash is pretty self-explanatory. It's all just show and tell and hide and seek. It's just find the bolt, find the connector, and disconnect everything. We did have a little bit of excess rust on the driver's side of the firewall on the inside, but luckily all of that damage was to the console structure, not the framework. Nothing that could have been repaired, but luckily we don't have to. I didn't pay much attention to the wiring because I'm not planning on using any of the wiring in this car. So the windshield looks like somebody tried to reseal it and failed miserably. Not for their lack of effort on their part, but they definitely used the wrong sealant. Whatever they're using was still tacky. These windshields are glued in with a butyl rubber, and whatever they used never cured, and it's now there's this black tar stuff everywhere. So I don't know what the plan was there, but it didn't work. The glass, the safest place for the glass is right where it is, so we're leaving them in place for now. And again, I know I'm not trying to insult anybody's intelligence, but there's really nothing that specific to these cars that is really worth mentioning as far as disassembly. It's all pretty straightforward. Be careful with your linkages and everything. Maybe the hardware to pull the cable assemblies out, that took me a minute to figure out, but again, it shouldn't take you much longer to figure it out yourself. There's a little more rust than we thought there would be, but that's shouldn't be too surprising. Luckily for us, this whole car is going to just be customized to my liking. I'm not trying to make this anything original or anything it's not. So a lot of these individual panels are available. In fact, all of these individual panels are available, but not a whole floor pan assembly. If this was a 64, I could get a whole pan insert for 500 bucks before shipping. But instead, I have to buy each individual pan for like $150 a piece if I want to go that route. I'm sure some of these I will. These rear footwell pans, I definitely will. But the fronts, I may just use, like, I don't know, diamond plate or something. I'm not sure. I'll probably just buy all new pans for everything. There are body mounts that are just contact points where there is supposed to be the little rubber pucks, but they're not actually secured to one another. They're secured to the frame, not the body. The body just rests on them, and we were missing 2 of them. The ones up front were gone completely, so. There's supposed to be a mount there. The next ones in line are back here, and they're there. So really the body was just been floating over the frame until it gets to the 4 mounts in the front. We have 2 in the back that are more or less over the differential, over the fuel tank area, right behind where the spring mounts. And then we have 2 more in the trunk, along with 2 more contact mounts in the trunk. These frames are the 4-door hardtop, the 4-door post sedan, and the coupes are all the same frame. 65 to 67, small differences here and there, but they'll all interchange for the most part. The wagons and the convertibles, those frames are different enough to where I don't think it's worth trying to make work. But so we're at the point where if I really wanted to, I could find a coupe shell and put on top of this frame, because this frame is in amazing condition. But the thing is finding a coupe shell that doesn't need this much work, or just the same amount of work. A coupe shell that needs this same amount of work, it'd probably be like $5,000 just by itself. Nothing spectacular about these cars. That's why I don't feel bad tearing into this thing. Not that it doesn't need everything we're doing to it, but I'm not ruining anything that has any intrinsic value other than its scrap value, really. So again, I paid $2,500 for the whole car, and it ran and drove. It drove in here. I know that's not saying much, but it did. Now, these cars are not the easiest cars to pull the bodies off of, because the frame is actually recessed in a pocket on the body. So even if I had a 2-post lift, it would actually probably be more of a pain, to be honest. Maybe not, but there is a method to the madness of how I'm going to get this thing off this frame by myself without damaging it. Once the wheels are off and out of the way, that will allow us to lift the rear section of the body up first, because of the trunk. The very last mounts are as far back in the trunk as they can be, and the trunk is very salty, so we don't want all this weight being pivoted on the very back of the car, as the back of the car isn't in the greatest condition. Not that there's anything inherently wrong with the structure of it, it just needs some TLC. We're going to be jacking up the body from right around the area the fuel tank straps mount to, because particularly that area is the area I'm going to be cutting out anyway. So even if something gets creased or bent slightly, it's not really an issue. So you may be wondering, how the heck am I going to get this body off the frame by myself in this little shop without a lift? Well, here's part of it. You can kind of see the bunch of 2x4s down here. You might be a bit confused. So let's take a quick look at the mounting points and the method to the madness of how I'm going to get this body off this frame. So to lift up the rear of the car, I want to lift this thing up perfectly straight at the same time as the front. Now, of course, we're going to have to do that in small steps. So what I am doing, I'm using a scissor style transmission jack that has seen better days. That is a cinder block. And we have a 2x6 cut to the right length. That's going to push against the forward part of the trunk floor. This is not the ideal spot to lift. I would rather use this crossbar up top, but I don't really have the clearance for that with the differential being in the way, or the axle rather. So you can kind of tell our lifting point is going to be right in this area. So you can see we have some kind of natural built-in rigidity there. So guys, as I've mentioned with the rear, we want to try to get this body lifted straight up. You can see I have the strap in place, is centered as I can. The The hoist is going to want to pull forward slightly as this is risen up past a certain point, but that's just something we'll deal with as we come to it. I only need to get this up high enough to slide these mock frame blocks I built in between the body and the rail, and you'll just kind of see how this all works and how I'm going to use the quick jacks to ultimately get this body off the frame. I already removed the other side, but go ahead and remove that. All right, guys. Everything is cut, measured, and in place. Everything is squared. Left enough room in between the quick jacks to where when I lift this thing up, I can wheel the frame out from under it. So let's go ahead and get this thing in the air. That's the problem with the quick jack. As it lifts up, it starts to tilt backwards. But of course, because the front of the car was a little bit lower, it made contact at this point first. I had left that scissor jack just touching the trunk to act as just a little extra bracing before I had all this set up. So just make sure everything is still square as this is lifting up, because that's pretty important. Now these aren't attached to these, and this isn't attached to this. Everything can move around as it needs to, so nothing's in some crazy bind. We're at our first lock. All right, so now we're on our first lock with just a little pressure on the lines. The body mount point on that side is tweaked a little bit. It's cocked down. I don't know if this thing was in a wreck at some point or like ran off road at some point. That's probably why there wasn't body mounts up front. This quick jack can go up another, I want to say 10 inches, 8 inches or so. So as stated, I'm leaving the scissor jack in place. And if I remember, that should go high enough to help me out when this thing's at the full height, just to add that extra support. I will probably throw a strap around this. I will secure this to this, and this piece right here, I will probably get a large washer and a big lag bolt or a big lag screw and secure the front of the car to this framework. That way, with all of this attached to each other, if this thing ever started to pivot backwards, it would have to be pulling against all of this. So basically this whole jack assembly would have to be pivoting with the body. So I really don't see it doing that without a substantial amount of weight on the back.